Hello everyone. So this is the introduction to fluid mechanics and mechanical operations. Yeah. So we have two things here, fluid mechanics and mechanical operations. Fluid mechanics, as you can guess, is the study of fluid behavior. So we have some theory, little bit of experiments and numerical simulations maybe. On the other hand, we have mechanical operations, which is the applications of these concepts that we learn in fluid mechanics. Mainly, we will focus on the industrial operations which involve fluids. These will require an understanding of the concepts of fluid mechanics that we learn in the first part of this course. Fluid mechanics uh, is applicable everywhere, wherever you see the fluids, and almost everywhere you can see the fluids, ranging from the universal scale to the nanoscale. Here you can see a picture of a cloud raining over a terrain. So the cloud formation, raindrop formation, flow of water on the ground, uh, going into the water table or the rivers, and then going to the sea, pond or lakes, and then again evaporating back to form the clouds. All of this is a fluid process, and we can understand this using the concepts we will learn in this course. Then you have a fine mist, a spray from a can. This is atomization of a liquid, which can be understood using the concepts that we'll learn here again. This is again a scenario in nature, eruption of a volcano. There are a lot of things going on here. We can discuss this later on. Flow of blood in an artery or a vein or a capillary. Then flight of a hummingbird. All of these things involve fluids. I'll show you a few videos of experiments in slow motion. This is a solid sphere colliding with a pool of liquid, and you can see there is a column of liquid that follows the sphere, and then there is some disturbance, some wave pattern, and then there is some breakup. Okay, so all of these things can be understood using the equations of fluid mechanics. We'll see that later on. This is the flight of a hummingbird. You can see how fast the wings are flapping, and the hummingbird head and the beak are almost stable. You can see the amount of control. I don't know if there is a mechanical bird or something like that that has been invented which is something similar to this. It may be. Then coming to the natural flows, this is flow in a river. You can see that there is a bed with some semi-solid clay mixed with water and some particles floating in the river, submerged in the river. You can see that there is some morphology to the bed as well, so that dictates the boundary condition for the flow. So the flow affects the bed morphology, and the bed morphology in turn affects the flow as well. If you start with some geometry of the bed and some flow rate of the river, after some time it may happen that the morphology will change. It may reach a steady state, or it may be unsteady forever. And if you build a dam on this river, or some bridge which has its pillars going inside this mud, then that can also change the bed morphology. Also, the river may flow through some different streams. The flow rate may get altered in different streams, and so on. So that's why it is very important to study this problem of flow of rivers. This is another example of a 4-stroke engine. You see 4-stroke engines in cars, bikes, trucks, and so on. They are powered by diesel or petrol. Here you have 4 strokes in this 4-stroke engine: intake, compression, combustion, and exhaust. We will not go into this process in detail for now. You can read about this. This is also known as a piston cylinder engine. You have this piston which goes up and down inside this cylinder. It has 2 ports, inlet and outlet, and there is a spark plug which is used to ignite the fuel and air mixture that comes in from the inlet port. And from the outlet port you get your exhaust gases which go out from the exhaust pipe. So here I have shown a simulation of atomization of a jet. You can see that this is a pulsed jet, so there is some pulsation at the entry, and you can see these fine droplets that form after the breakup of this jet. Another example is inkjet printing. Here you have the nozzle of an inkjet printer. There is a mechanism here to generate small drops of ink. This is an actual slow motion video of the inkjet printer. You can see that following this drop there are some small drops which are undesirable, which will fall on the paper, thus creating a bad quality print. But still we'll have to deal with this because we have no other option. People study this and they try to minimize the trailing drops. Here there is another example in nature: long-beaked birds and how they drink water from a lake. As you can see, this beak is open, it is not a closed pipe, and the water has to travel up. So there is a phenomenon called contact angle hysteresis. You don't have a fixed contact angle for a liquid, gas and solid pair combination. You have a range of contact angles varying from theta receding to theta advancing. Both the drops are static in this case, they are not moving, but still you have these different angles. So there is this gradient of contact angle on the beak of this bird, which allow the bird to drink this drop of water by oscillating, by periodically opening and closing its beak. Another example in nature is that of pistol shrimp which uses fluid mechanics to kill its prey. You can see that this claw of this pistol shrimp is very big as compared to the other claw. This is a slow motion video where the claw is closing, and you can see that gas pocket that forms there and how it oscillates, and this is what kills the prey, this expanding and contracting gas bubble. This process is known as cavitation. You can also see it when a bullet is fired inside water. In this video you can see, in the wake of this bullet you can see this big patch of gas. These are actually dissolved gases inside the water or the water vapor itself, which gets undissolved and then it again gets dissolved. That's why this oscillation occurs. This phenomenon is similar to boiling, where also you get these vapor bubbles inside the liquid. And this is also used in treating cancer. Here there are these tiny bubbles which are used as seeds, and ultrasound is provided, focused ultrasound, on the tissue that you want to destroy. So you can see how these bubbles expand and contract, and that's how they kill the cancer cell or the cancerous tissue. These are very tiny bubbles, by the way, and this is a very fast process. You can see this 10 million frame per second. Some other examples of flows. This is a bubbly faucet where you introduce air in the liquid to minimize the splash as well as to make it more economic so that less wastage of water occurs. This is wastewater treatment where you provide oxygen bubbles to the wastewater so that the surface area of the surface from where the oxygen can be collected by the bacteria is increased. This is enhanced oil recovery where you push this black colored oil by some another fluid which is shown in white color here. How do we study these flows? Generally, there are three methods: experiments, theory, and computation. Computation is a rather new method of studying fluid flows. This is an example of an experiment in the B column here. This is a rising air bubble in a non-Newtonian fluid. We'll talk about what a non-Newtonian fluid is. But in this case, this particular fluid is translucent. You cannot see through it completely. And this is an air bubble. In this picture, I have overlapped the bubble shapes at different times on the same image. So you can see the bubble shape as t equal to 5, t equal to 10, 15 and 20 and so on. So you can see that the bubble boundary is not clearly visible, and also in experiments you cannot see the 3D shape of the bubble entirely. You can see only from one point of view or 2 or 3 points of views. And this A column shows the numerical simulations or the simulations that have been carried out on a computer using the fluid flow equations for the same case. And here are the images, experimental images at different times. You can see that roughly you can see the orientation of the bubble and size of the bubble matches with the experiments. But in the numerical simulations, the boundary is very clear and you can see from all the sides the entire three-dimensional view. So you get very accurate results from the numerical simulations. So this is just to show what are the limitations of the experiments. Although experiments need to be done in order to find out what actually happens, because now we'll see what are the limitations of theory and computations. Theory, you know that we derive the equations using some assumptions. The equations that we'll use for fluid mechanics are these three: conservation of mass, Newton's laws of motions. Mostly we'll use Newton's second law of motion, which is force equal to mass times acceleration. Then laws of thermodynamics. It may be energy equation, entropy equation. This Navier-Stokes equations is for a particular type of fluid which is derived from Newton's second law of motion for fluid flows. And this is a very complicated equation which cannot be completely solved theoretically till now. And this Clay Mathematics Institute has announced a prize of $1 million for someone who can theoretically prove the existence of solution for Navier-Stokes equations. And you can see this page on Clay Math Institute for Navier-Stokes equation. This is one of the millennium problems. They call them millennium problems. Some of them are solved, most of them are unsolved. Navier-Stokes is one of them. Okay, limitations of theory. So all the equations don't yield analytical solutions. For example, this integral here, e raised to the power x square dx. You cannot find an analytical solution to this integral. Similarly, this integral also you cannot solve. So if you get one of those integrals in the last step of your uh, analytical work, you cannot solve it further. Computations are more and more common these days. You get detailed picture of what is happening. Here, for example, this is a bubble rising in water. This is an air bubble. You can see the zigzag path of this bubble, and you can see the close-up view of the surface of the bubble, the oscillations with time very clearly. This is the trajectory that I have plotted here, and this is the vertical velocity oscillations with time. Oscillations of the vertical velocity of the center of mass. Now calculating something like this is very difficult in experiments, and this cannot be done using the theory. Theory in fluid mechanics you can only use after a lot of assumptions, after simplifying the equations, or for 2 dimensions or 1 dimension. And 2 dimensions also only for limited cases with a lot of assumptions. Okay, so we'll stop here and we'll see what is fluid, what is mechanics, what are different kinds of fluids, what are Newtonian, non-Newtonian fluids, and classification of fluids, parameters involved, density, viscosity, surface tension, what are those, in the next class. Thank you.